The city had been a symphony of shrieking metal, sirens, and the ceaseless low hum of a million lives pressing in on each other. For Leo, a sound designer whose world was built on the purity of frequencies, it was a slow poison. His escape was a cabin, a sleek, modern box of glass and cedar dropped into the heart of a forest so old the trees seemed to groan under the weight of their own history. Here the silence was a physical presence, a soft, clean blanket he could wrap himself in. For the first week it was paradise. He set up his expensive recording equipment, capturing the delicate soundscape, the whisper of wind through pine, the percussive tap of a woodpecker, the gentle gurgle of the nearby creek. This air was different. It was clean, crisp, and utterly pure. The first rainstorm was a welcome spectacle. Leo sat in his armchair, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as the sky bruised and opened up. The sound was magnificent, a million tiny drums on the roof and leaves. When it was over, a profound freshness filled the air. But laced within it was something else, a faint, sharp, metallic tang. It was the scent of rust, like an old, wet iron fence, or the coppery smell of a fresh paper cut. It was unsettlingly out of place in the pristine wilderness. He checked the cabin's pipes, the gutters, the well pump. Nothing. He dismissed it as an oddity of the local soil. A few days later, another storm rolled through, and the smell returned, stronger this time. It clung to the damp air, an unwelcome guest in his sanctuary. His hypersensitive nose, a professional asset, now felt like a curse. He couldn't ignore it. The scent seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was in the soil, on the breeze, in the very essence of the rain-soaked forest. His idyllic retreat was now tainted by this single, inexplicable sensory detail. Obsession rooted deep. He bought a top-of-the-line air quality monitor, a device that cost more than his first car. The readings were infuriatingly perfect. 0 pollutants, high oxygen levels, the cleanest air the device had ever measured. Yet the phantom smell persisted, a ghost in the machine. He started taking walks after every rainfall with his parabolic microphone in hand, as if he could somehow hear the source of the smell. The forest, once a comfort, began to feel watchful. The towering trees, silent and ancient, seemed to be holding a secret. His nights grew restless. He dreamed of vast red deserts under a bruised sky, the air thick with crimson dust that coated his tongue with the taste of rust. He would wake up with a dry mouth, the phantom smell clinging to his senses even inside the sealed cabin. Driven by a quiet desperation, he collected soil samples and a bottle of water from the creek. He concocted a story about starting a specialized garden. The lie felt flimsy, but the need to know had become a physical ache. While he waited for the results, the mother of all storms descended. The sky turned a sickly green-black, and the rain came down not in drops, but in solid, wind-driven sheets. The power flickered and died, plunging the cabin into a deep twilight. The scent of rust was no longer a faint tang. It was an overwhelming, suffocating presence, so thick he could almost taste it. It was the smell of old blood. A flash of lightning bleached the world white for a second, and Leo stared out the massive glass wall of his living room. He saw the forest, but he truly saw it for the first time. The rain was streaming down the bark of the colossal ancient trees, and the water was not clear. In the stark, instantaneous light of the storm, he saw that the runoff clinging to the bark was tinged with a faint but definite reddish-brown hue. It was like the trees themselves were bleeding. Just as that impossible image burned itself into his mind, his phone, which had been clinging to its last bar of service, buzzed. The power hummed back to life at the same moment. It was an email from the university. The subject line flagged with an urgent red exclamation point. His hands trembled as he opened it. The email was from the head geologist, her words tripping over themselves with a frantic academic excitement that bordered on panic. Mr. Vance, I don't know what kind of garden you are planning, but the samples you sent are unlike anything I have ever seen. The soil and water contain astronomical concentrations of iron oxides and, more shockingly, complex hemoglobin proteins. This is not a mineral deposit. My team has only one working hypothesis, and it is biologically unprecedented. Leo's blood ran cold as he read the next lines. The dominant species of tree in your area, previously thought to be a unique genus of pine, does not appear to use chlorophyll-based photosynthesis. The cellular structures suggest an evolutionary divergence that is staggering. They seem to have developed a circulatory system based on heme proteins, analogous to blood, to transport nutrients and process chemosynthesis. In layman's terms, Mr. Vance, the trees in your forest are, for all intents and purposes, colossal, slow-moving, plant-based animals. Leo slowly lifted his eyes from the phone screen and looked out the window at the silent, dripping forest. They weren't trees. They were a silent, breathing audience of blood-filled terrestrial life forms, standing motionless in the rain. The clean, pure air he had been reveling in was their exhalation. The scent of rust was the smell of their iron-rich blood washing from their skin. His phone screen was still glowing. He looked down and saw the final, terrifying lines of the geologist's email, a question she had clearly typed in a state of panicked awe. We can only guess at their metabolic process. We don't know what they breathe in. Mr. Vance, what have you been breathing out for them this whole time? Leo stood frozen in the silent cabin, the air feeling suddenly thick, heavy, and horribly intimate. He took a deep, shuddering breath, and for the first time, he felt the forest breathe back.
Elias found a sacred quiet in the work. As a senior archivist for Mnemonic, the world's most exclusive digital preservation service, his job was to be a ghost, drifting through the captured lives of others. He handled the home movies, faded photographs, and brittle letters of the wealthy, digitizing their histories into pristine, immortal data. It was intimate work, a secular form of priesthood. He was saving souls, 1 terabyte at a time. His current project was his largest yet, the Blackwood Estate. They were an old money dynasty, and their collection was a sprawling, century-long saga. For weeks, Elias had been meticulously restoring their 8mm films from the 1970s. He sat in his sterile, soundproofed workstation, the whir of the digitizer a soft mantra as he watched grainy images of garden parties and holidays flicker to life on his monitor. That's when he first saw the boy. In a sun-drenched clip from 1978, a child of about 6 with unruly brown hair was chasing a golden retriever across a manicured lawn. The boy tripped, falling onto the grass, and when he pushed himself up, he held his left hand out to the camera, On the back of the hand, just below the knuckle of his index finger, was a small, crescent-shaped birthmark. Elias froze. He lowered his own left hand from his mouse and stared at the identical pale crescent on his own skin. A dizzying wave of vertigo washed over him. It was a coincidence, a startling 1 in a billion coincidence. He took a deep breath, logged the clip, and moved on. But the boy kept appearing. A birthday party in '79, a Christmas morning in '81, the same unruly hair, the same laugh that Elias felt in his own chest, the same crescent birthmark. The locations were opulent and unfamiliar, grand manors and sprawling seaside properties, yet the boy's experiences felt like echoes of his own. He watched the boy learn to ride a bike, the memory of scraped knees and his own father's steadying hand rising unbidden in his mind. He watched the boy open a Christmas gift, a red toy spaceship, and felt a phantom thrill of joy, a ghostly memory of holding that same toy in his own hands. He was working too hard. The isolation was getting to him. That night he called his mother. Her voice was a warm, familiar comfort. He asked her, casually, if they had any home movies from when he was a kid. She laughed. "Oh, you know your father and I were terrible with cameras. We were too busy living the moment to ever think of recording it. We have the photo albums, dear. That's all." Her answer was the same one she had always given, but for the first time, it sounded rehearsed, hollow. The feeling of unreality intensified. At work, he felt like he was watching his own life, stolen and transplanted into a wealthier setting. At home, his own sparse collection of childhood photos felt alien, the smiling faces of his parents like well-meaning strangers. The mnemonic archive had strict protocols against copying client data, a fireable offense that carried legal consequences. He ignored them. Driven by a need that gnawed at his sanity, he created a shielded copy of the entire Blackwood archive on a private server. He spent the weekend locked in his apartment, letting the software he used for work run wild on the data. Facial recognition, audio analysis, metadata cross-referencing. He was looking for a glitch, an explanation, anything to anchor himself back to reality. On Sunday night, he found it. Buried deep in a corrupted data block was a mislabeled video file, not from a film canister, but from an early digital source. The timestamp was 1991. The title was Integration Baseline, Subject E11. His blood ran cold. He clicked play. The video was crisp, clinical. It showed a teenager, the boy from the films, now about 14, sitting in a sterile white room. It was him. He was watching a screen, and on that screen, a home movie was playing. A modest suburban backyard, a man grilling burgers, a woman setting a picnic table. It was a scene from Elias's own childhood memories, the ones he cherished, the ones of his parents. A calm, detached voice spoke over the video. Subject E11 is demonstrating strong emotional resonance with the Tier 2 Suburban Comfort Package. Core parental bonds are forming. Note the positive response to the father figure stimulus. The donor memories from the Blackwood archive have been successfully edited and implanted. We are projecting a 98% integration success rate. Subject will be ready for societal placement within the year. He stopped breathing. He wasn't the archivist. He was the archive. His life, his love for his parents, his cherished memories of a middle-class upbringing, they weren't his. They were a product, a carefully curated narrative crafted from the raw material of another family's life, edited for maximum stability and implanted in him. He was an orphan, a blank slate, given a bespoke childhood by the very company he now worked for. Mnemonic didn't just save memories, it built souls from the spare parts. He looked at his own hands, at the crescent birthmark, the only thing they couldn't edit out. It was the only piece of him that was real. He thought of his mother, her warm voice, and felt a wave of love so profound it almost broke him, immediately followed by the horrifying knowledge that the love itself was an echo, a programmed response to a woman who was likely just another employee. His work laptop chimed with a new notification. He numbly clicked the trackpad. A new project had been assigned to him. The title stared back from the screen, a sterile final damnation. Subject F4, Begin Memory Curation. Tier 3, Artistic Upbringing Package requested.